And our deputy editor Shiv Arur is now joining us with more details on that story he's getting for us. Shiv, he's a serving officer. How unbecoming is it of the government to be heaping insults on him, to be questioning his character?
The merits of the case will be decided by the court, which is why there is a bench that will hear, both sides of the story in this case. But, our focus with this story, Maha, is the unbelievable arrogance, the temerity that this government has had in imputing, motivations, casting aspersions on the character of this particular fighter pilot, accusing him of having ulterior motives, accusing him of being greedy for, promotions and compensation. When this is a fighter pilot who actually risked his life and limb, just to save a village when an aircraft that he was flying way back in 2005 crashed in Rajasthan. Now, the fact is, he waited until he had all the facts, and the Air Force itself, the government itself, concluded in a formal official court of inquiry, Maha, that the cause of the crash was faulty workmanship and a manufacturing defect that was imputable to Hindustan Aeronautics Limited that built this aircraft, which is why all this pilot actually wants is for accountability to be fixed. He has said in several cases in this petition that he's not looking for compensation, he's not looking for promotions, he's a pilot, he's a soldier, and he will continue to serve as long as he's able, but that this is something that needs to be set as a precedent because of the dangers of flying this particular aircraft attributable to, the negligence and lackadaisical, professional processes by the people who made this aircraft. Now, the language used by the government in this reply to this affidavit, to this petition by this pilot is absolutely astonishing. They talk about him being greedy for compensation and promotions. They talk about how the injuries that he suffered are not attributable to the crash, but attributable to his age, and he isn't that old actually. They also talk about how he did not seek legal recourse immediately after the crash, which is a little ridiculous given that, he had to wait for the actual court of inquiry to be complete, several months later before he could actually look at any kind of legal recourse. Over 10 broad headings, what we've done here on Headlines Today is highlight the manner in which the government has simply abused and heaped insults on an officer and a pilot who actually stayed long enough in the aircraft to steer it away from a village and probably saved hundreds of lives on the ground.
Shiv, leaving aside the insults, there are several times when the armed forces have reiterated that crashes are more often than not a human error. Then how wrong is the government in reiterating that fact in court?
Well, the simple fact is the government is contradicting itself. Now, it is actually true that there is statistical evidence to prove that several crashes that happen, Maha, including on the MiG-21, are due to human error or pilot error. But the fact remains that in this specific case, a court of inquiry conducted by the Indian Air Force in coordination with Hindustan Aeronautics Limited has concluded that the chief cause of the crash was, poor workmanship, a defect in a flight critical component of the aircraft, which led to that, engine fire that finally caused the crash. So in this particular case, the court of inquiry has actually ruled that it was not human error, but it was actually a technical defect attributed to poor manufacturing processes that caused the crash. So the government at this point of time cannot, as it has in this shocking reply, attribute it, to the pilot's own error. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which made this faulty aircraft, has said in its, its reply to this pilot that, the pilot is trying to cover up for his own faults and his own inadequacies as a pilot, which is not just shocking, it's the most heartless thing you can say to a pilot. You've made an aircraft that he's supposed to fly, it has crashed, and what you do after that crash is just continue to heap insults on that person. So the fact about human error definitely stands separately, but in this particular case, if the government is even trying to insinuate that in its reply, it's simply contradicting itself.
Shiv, how demotivating are such incidents for officers serving the armed forces?
Well, I can tell you one thing, Maha. When we broke this story last year in May, when Wing Commander Kela actually approached the High Court, it created an enormous splash. There were several people in the Air Force and otherwise who said, fighter flying is hazardous. When pilots sign up to fly fighter aircraft, they always have the knowledge that it's an inherently dangerous occupation. But in this particular case, the pilot, who survived this crash has said that he's prepared to die for the country. He's prepared to die at the enemy's hands, but not as a result of negligence and laxity on the part of people who've actually made that aircraft, which is what the government has